Welcome to the Node.js Node add-on API team meeting for August 2nd, 2024. We'll follow our standard approach of looking through the issues that are tagged for milestone 11 as our agenda. So let me share that. Let's share that. And that is there. Okay. So any announcements that people would like to share before we get started? Okay, if not, we'll move on to any things we should discuss on some of the issues we've got here, like NAP experimental, SQLite, debug testing, any of those things? Not, I'm gonna
I have
go ahead.
something towards actually towards coverage. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
yeah,
Um, is it coverage? It's the CI, I guess. I opened a pull request on Node add-on API
okay. Let me just
for yeah. I guess we're gonna go there anyways, so we might as
sure, but
well.
like we can look at this. So this is right.
Yeah,
So you've actually enabled the experimental testing. Excellent.
yeah, for Windows. This is it's not for coverage. Um,
Yep,
this is just for tests getting the because I'm working on the basic environmental changes,
yep,
right? And I want to make sure those will actually compile under Windows. So I
yep.
want to get this one merged in. It doesn't deal with coverage on experimental yet because that's still dealing with the issue of, having to compile under multiple compiler definitions and gather things
Right.
together and
So
whatnot.
it looks like it all passes.
Yeah, and I pinpointed in my comments some specific links to the CI where for the standard it shows version
Yep.
9 and for experimental it shows that. So yeah, everything should be good. So once this lands, I can rebase my basic PR and repush, and then it should run on
Okay.
Windows experimental, and we'll see what happens there.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna land that because I don't think that's going to be
Um,
controversial. It's been open for a little bit. So,
yeah, uh,
okay. So that's moving the test ahead. That's good.
I'm curious, how did that npm version apply in the trip? Because that npm version is only exposed as a environment variable, right?
It uses the same thing that Gabe introduced for for testing experimental for Linux. It passes a flag to npm, which then gets transmitted as an environmental variable or something like that.
Yeah, I think
Like
I
this
think
right here, right?
make listens to it. So it ends up sorry, in the can you open the zip file? I think that's where we listen to it, and we turn it into a preprocessor directive.
This one,
No,
this one.
what is it? Bindings.zip. It should be in test, like test bindings zip.
Okay.
Yeah, there
I
it
can
is.
see that line 90 explicitly reference the environment, but I didn't find a reference for the API version.
Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah. Let me see that. Um,
Um, this defines it's in binding Jippy, the binding JIP for our
So not in test,
or
but
no common JIP. I'm sorry. That's
oh,
for us.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Common
it's in
Jippy. Yeah.
common JIP for
Yeah.
line
The root
7.
directory.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what
okay.
Gabe introduced. It just wasn't applied for the CI for the matrix. So very simple
Yeah.
change.
Sound good.
Mhm.
Okay, any other ones before we dive into the stale issues? Okay, I don't see anything new on stale issues, so then let's go to,
I think there's a still pull request that has been opened for a quite a long time and changed recently because there was some suggestion. I posted the link in the chat.
okay, let me find it.
Yeah. Last time I presented this in the meeting is that the program should be ready to land, but until someone suggested a change that is reverted, that makes the property type to be normal string, and the author applied the change. So yeah, and Vladimir commented that we should still keep the internalized string instead of a normal string because that would be a duplication with existing string APIs. So I just it's just a highlight that we don't have any next steps for this progress because that would require the author to revert the change. So I just want to highlight it. Yeah.
Okay, so basically this just needs to go back to K internalized.
Yeah, that was the intention of the new APIs.
Yeah.
It's I don't understand like why the author been asked about like
think
seems like they didn't read the whole context of his PR and
Right.
suggestion and just confusing the author for no reason.
Yeah.
I think Yatik is asking for the context, but they also just applied the change, which, well, I mean,
Yeah.
I will reach out to Mert on Slack privately to ask for his to know his idea on this and what he would like to do as the next steps to see if we can help him on this request. Yeah.
My understanding, the only reason we didn't merge it before, like week ago, because Gabriel had some comments about some documentation, and my understanding, the only thing was actually was standing like week ago between kind of merging with PR was actually Gabriel's concern about documentation stuff. And Gabriel, can you comment like what you find that confusing there or something?
Yeah, so I was just thinking that the documentation says that there is additional overhead if the engine doesn't support this, right? But if the engine doesn't support it, then the implementation will be written such that it simply falls back to creating a regular string, and then you don't get the benefit, but there is no additional overhead because the function is just an alias for creating a regular string. So in terms of the implementation in V8, yes, there is an additional overhead which you paid the first time, but the documentation doesn't talk about that overhead. It talks about the overhead if the internalized string feature is not provided by the engine. So in that case, there is no overhead. So the implementation details for V8 are one thing, but saying that there will be an overhead, if the engine doesn't support it, that's not correct because then the implementation is wrong if it somehow adds overhead.
I think this
So
paragraph was come from previous come from the existing documentation. So if it is confusing, then we should make the change in a separate pull request because it is already there. This pull request just moved this paragraph around. So I think this can be a separate thing. Yeah, this new paragraph was moved from down below. If would you mind scroll a little bit down? A little bit down. Yeah, there is it, the red part.
Hey, sorry. I guess I cut out. Are you guys there?
We're still
Can you
there.
hear me?
Okay, yeah. I had a momentary blip. So
Yeah,
I'm sorry if you moved past the thing. I was just going to say that I guess it's my comment is still relevant because it says that if a new JavaScript string is intended to be used as a property key, then for some JavaScript it would be more efficient to use the functions in this section, right? That's true. Otherwise, use this function, use the regular functions, as there may be additional overhead in creating, storing strings with the property key methods. Why would there be additional overhead if the engine doesn't support property key methods?
I don't think it has to do with the supporting. It's more generating internalized strings is a little extra overhead, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. But if that is what we wish to document, then we shouldn't put that in the otherwise section. We should say if a new JavaScript string is intended to be used as a property key, then for some JavaScript engines, it will be more efficient to use the function in this section, even though in those engines, using these functions will incur an additional overhead upon creation, which will be paid back 1,000-fold when they are reused over and over again. Otherwise, use the blah, blah, blah section, series functions, period. Not as there may be additional overhead, because there is no additional overhead. Or actually, better yet, it should say otherwise, these functions will simply be aliases for an API create string UTF-8 or node API create external string UTF-8.
I don't think we really want to get into that. I think it's more like if you're going to use them over and over again, use these, but accept there may be overhead. Like I'd leave it at that. If you're not going to use them over and over, you should just use the other ones, right? Because
well, but let's not say that. I mean, we need to be clear that the overhead is paid once, because otherwise, what's the benefit, right? The point is, the first time you call this function, with a given pointer, it is more expensive than just calling the regular create. The second time, it is much faster than calling the regular create, and so it is on all subsequent times, right? And so that's the benefit, right? But if the engine doesn't support property keys, then this function is completely identical to calling a regular a string function because, well, the engine doesn't support anything. And so the implementation will just be like, call that other function. And that's it.
Although I don't think we should get into like if it supports it. It should just be for this use case, this one is better. Otherwise, use the other one. I think Shendong was also saying like that's independent from this pull request because the description was just copied.
yeah, exactly. This paragraph was just moved in this pull request. So if it is confusing, then we should make
change all three.
Yeah, and that could be a separate PR just to like keep things like let's not get the author have to figure that all out. Like we can just do that in a separate PR to say like let's make this clarify.
Okay, yeah, all right, that's cool.
And I also think like it's not so important to talk about creation of this string itself, but it's more important what's more efficient to use to create properties, to access properties. I think like the whole idea about this create property stuff was actually that this value can be more efficient for setting property value, getting property value. Like It's very
Right.
difficult to say like which implementation will be more efficient, just creating normal string versus this internalized string, right? Like this property key. It's in some cases will be one way faster, another way faster. We don't even know like about this stuff. But the point is actually, if we're using the create property key, this value would be more efficient to access properties, to creating properties, change properties.
Okay. All right. So that's the documentation change we should make then.
Yeah.
The only thing like what I was playing today with Cheng Zhong's benchmark, and I see it completely opposite result.
Okay. well,
That's not good.
Yeah, well, right. I don't have anything to comment here.
well, micro benchmarks can sometimes be interesting, so it'll be
Yeah. Well, I mean, micro benchmarks are not always satisfying when involving these small improvements. But yeah, we should definitely improve the benchmarking instead. I'm trying to see if it's incorrect in the benchmarking instead.
Because what I believe, what I saw before in while debugging V8 code, I saw like if you provide a normal string and the check is the special flag is internalized or not. If it's not internalized, they internalize it first. Like they create a new internalized string everything, and then they kind of use it to access properties. And it was felt like if it's not internalized, it's supposed to do some additional work. I don't know. I still want to kind of go deeper into the subject. Like you said, maybe we need to provide different benchmark which showcases it's better.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'm just gonna be back in 1 sec. Somebody's at my door.
So Gabriel, could you comment on this PR just to kind of make decision? Because my understanding, like it's only like it depends on you if we need to proceed on this thing or not.
Yeah,
After,
yeah. I'll make a comment and resolve the conversation.
thanks.
Okay. I think where were we? We were actually right. We're gonna go ahead and go to node add-on API. Look at the pull request. This one, I guess, haven't you mentioned already? You're just gonna rebase now that the testing's landed.
Mhm. Yeah, I just did that. I rebased and pushed, so the CI is
Okay.
currently running. But yeah, it still should be good to go.
Good. And I don't see anything new in the issues. Anything we should chat about before we flip over to core? Issue. Oops. Ah. Okay. Guess. Yes. See too much. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
think
didn't reproduce the problem, so 3 weeks already. We waiting for the author to comment, but there is no updates.
okay. So let me That sound reasonable? Basically just say like, hey, if we don't hear back from you in another week, we'll close it since we can't reproduce it.
And good.
I
That way
just don't know,
next week.
very good about Linux subsystems. Is it can be specific to Debian or something? Is it possible maybe like the specific version of Linux uses something like not the new node, but maybe some kind of built-in one? I don't know. It's
Yeah, it
can you
seems that
tell
it's
us
quite
if
a corner case.
it's a 6.1? Is it old one, new one?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't
Debian,
know.
where is
Let's
it
see.
at?
Debian 6.
Well, I mean, if there's a backtrace, that would be helpful to identify if it's related to the system, but there is no such information provided, so I think it would be really hard for us to identify the problem here.
That must be the
I agree.
kernel version. I think that 6.1 must be kernel versus because Debian is at 12 these days.
my understanding that Debian is a core of many kind of popular distros, and maybe they can point us to some specific distros they're using or something like. You know.
Usually, if Debian is in the uname, then that's just Debian.
Debian, okay.
Yeah,
So
because the uname usually gives the actual distro name. I mean, unless it's such a sort of low grade distro that they didn't even update the uname, but generally it's in the distro. Like I think Ubuntu won't say Debian.
it's like a GNU Linux. Is it name of distribution or no?
Well, GNU/Linux, that just means GNU operating system running on top of Linux kernel. So that's a generic for all Linuxes, but the first one says Debian, so that tells me that
Yeah,
it's
and I
probably
think
Debian,
that's
but it's
like
a really old Debian.
that's why I think that's the kernel version is supposed to.
Yeah, that's the kernel. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's true. Yes, you're right. Yeah, that's the kernel version, not the distro version. So it's
It's
Debian
also
running kernel 6.1.0.
my question. Like, can we ask like maybe they can suggest what distro we can use to repro this case? Maybe it's some specific distro issues or something. I don't know.
Oh, and I mean the version of Node would help, right?
No,
I think
they
that
do
might
it.
be here.
Yeah.
So I
Oh,
think
I
they,
see. Okay.
so that is there.
Hmm.
I think we like it seems like we need if they respond with more info, we can then start to investigate, right? But
I agree.
they don't respond for 4 weeks. It's kind of like
And
Maybe we
they
ask
might have just fixed it and moved on.
all those questions about repro stuff and things that they provided all these responses, like probably from their point of view, what else they can provide. And I guess for us, we know like it's very basic test which doesn't work. The only kind of variable which I, for example, don't understand, like what distro I can install, say, on my parallels. That's
why
kind
don't
of
we say what uh, which is which version how about that? Is that
Yep, looks good.
maybe we can probably use this specific distro version or something just to kind of see that maybe there's some conflict going on with Node. I don't know, like maybe some library incompatibility. It's a lot of maybe things may happen, right? Which could, I believe it's not Node API specific. It's maybe some conflict goes on, say, the latest node.js start to use certain library version, and this specific distro has different library versions and some incompatibilities, and start to call some APIs, kaboom, right? So I would think about this type of issue might happen. It's just kind of node.js version not compatible with specific this distro version.
So yeah, they can tell us which specific version of Debian it would be used to, then it could be reproduced.
And maybe it's also kind of not node API specific issue, like I was saying. Yeah, it's probably kind of, we could go from there probably.
Yeah.
After that.
Okay, otherwise, I don't see anything too new this one. So this one, I guess, Vladimir, I don't know if you have a chance to poke at that at all.
I'm still looking at it, like, yeah.
So it's still in play. Otherwise, this one, I think there was just, was there this one? It was like something. There's some
Something is
failure.
breaking. I don't understand yet why.
Okay.
This breaking code doesn't seem to be related, but I'll probably kind of rebase it and try it again.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so any others that we should chat about? I guess if not, then thanks for everybody's time, and we'll see you all in GitHub next week.
All right. Talk to y'all next week.
Okay, thanks. Bye.